Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bilbo?
Present.
Mr. Haas?
Here.
Ms. House?
Here.
Mr. Morelli?
Present.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Ms. Sedman?
Here.
Mr. Schnee?
Present.
Mr. Urban?
Here.
Mr. Vogt?
Here.
Ms. Wakes? Mr. McGinley?
Present. Thank you. Any additions or deletions to the work session agenda? Motion to approve the agenda?
So. Second.
Ms. Wakes, Mr. Vogt, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We're going to do the anti-littering presentation. Then we'll move the voting machines up to number 2, and the division reports will be at the end. And we'll ask the manager if anyone has any questions to forward that to the manager. Mr. Wampel, you have 5 minutes.
Well, I'm going to make it really quick, and I appreciate you taking the time out to hear us tonight. I'm making this general appeal because we are in the middle of running a program. It's an anti-littering initiative that we're asking, obviously, for council support, but in addition to that, we want you to be able to go back to your individual communities as well and encourage them. We have sent out invitations now to all 76 municipalities in the county. We have sent it to every one of the school districts, inviting them to a meeting on October the 22nd to have this. It's going to be an 8:30 to 11 meeting up at the Woodlands, where it's a big presentation on all the different programs that are available, whether it's through the Pennsylvania Environmental Council, Keep NEPA Beautiful, PennDOT. There's all kinds of different programs that are available, and we want to be the resource to get that information out. This all goes back, and because of the interest of time, I'll keep this real short. This all goes back to when we brought our branding consultant into town to kind of come up with a different brand for Luzerne County. And one of the things they found was there was a curb appeal issue with some of the places that we went to. And it was one of those where there was a little bit of litter here, a little bit of trash there. Nothing big, and he didn't make a big deal out of it, although it got really played up, with all due respect, in the media. And we looked at that as a way that we were going to try to address it and really attack it, because curb appeal, from our perspective, from the Visitors Bureau, means everything. And when they say that we're the front door to the non-tourism economic development, it means everything to, I think, everybody in this room. So we joined up with the program. My first phone call was to Chris Barrett, who's the president and CEO of Pocono Mountains Visitors Bureau, who's sitting in front of you today, who's got a very successful program going on up at the Poconos. And I just reached out to him and said, listen, we want to come on board. You've got a plan in place, a program, resources. We want to join up with you and find out how that we can help attack this problem in Luzerne County. Palmyra Miller is here. She's the program coordinator for the Pennsylvania Environmental Council as well. There's so many moving parts here. I'm going to
Ask her to stand since we. So, thank you.
So without any further ado, I will pass it off to Chris Barrett. And again, with our goal at the end of this is we want you to get the message out about this meeting on the 22nd, because that's where we're going to spill everything out and spend some time talking about the programs. Chris?
Thank you. There's a microphone there. I think it operates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If you're going to do the slides with it. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Council people, thank you for having me this evening. Just wanted to talk a little bit about our program. I want to start by saying, first of all, Ted and Luzerne County are extremely strong partners for us, and I think by getting the message out throughout Pennsylvania as much as we can, it'll help us to really combat the littering problem that we're seeing across the whole state. So we did 2 or 3 things. I want to cover them very quickly for you, and if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I want to say I'm originally from Hazleton, so it's really great for me to be here, and we're very, very happy to help. Pick Up the Poconos actually started as a purely advertising and marketing initiative to build awareness that litter does a lot of different things. Number one, Ted mentioned curb appeal, but also number 2, it's environmentally unsound. So you could just imagine that when you have a guest that's coming to the Commonwealth to visit, they're visiting us because of our beautiful landscapes throughout all of these counties. They see litter along our roadways. Even though our properties are very well maintained, the folks are very good with hospitality, the litter piece really kind of clouds it. So we thought, who else to really care and worry about this than us, and how do we do this, and how do we go forward? So we started a discussion. We've got a lot of disparate groups from all 4 of our counties involved, and we represent Carbon, Monroe, Wayne, and Pike. We reached out to the townships and the municipalities through our county commissioners. We identified roads. Palmyra is one of the people who helped us get supplies. But we started first with marketing through television, in our own Wilkes-Barre Scranton market, WNEP, BRE, and some of the rest. And then we also did a radio campaign, an outdoor campaign, to talk a little bit about awareness to the fact that littering is really hurting us. So you're seeing some of those points right here. The second piece of it was, we thought, okay, awareness is great, but let's put our money where our mouth is, and let's recruit folks to go out and pick up trash along some of our roadways, that we cooperated with our townships and municipalities to identify those. So we did that, and again, we were showing leadership. As tourism being a top industry in the Poconos, we had to be concerned about our curb appeal and how we looked. So we also, and I just wanted to mention this fairly quickly, there is a PennDOT authorizes a company, it just happens to be called Adopt a Highway, to pick routes 80 and 380 and some other routes that identify as being too dangerous for volunteers to pick. We actually retain them to start to pick 80 and 380 because 90 million vehicles are entering Pennsylvania on 80 heading west from New Jersey and New York. So a lot of them are traveling to our area, Hershey, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, Pittsburgh. So we invested about $150,000 in that, and an additional $50,000 picking up our ramps, because when people were pulling off ramps, we found a lot of bad things at the end of those ramps. So within a year to year and a half, we picked up about 2,000 bags of litter, and you can see some of the photos there from those picks. We also, and I'm going to show you some of our yard signs, billboards. We also did a fairly strong digital and social media campaign. Some of the incentives you see to recruit people are the trash cans that are on your table. That's why we brought them. We also engaged the media and tried to engage adjacent counties to us, which Lackawanna, Lehigh, Northampton, and Luzerne were some. But we did 2 Pick Up the Poconos days. The first one was last year, where we recruited about 371 volunteers for one day. It was the 28th of September. That was the culmination of working with our townships and municipalities. We also worked with East Stroudsburg University. We got 100 volunteers from students, bright and bushy-eyed on a Saturday morning, to help us come out and pick. So we picked up 738 bags, and we covered 60 miles of roadway in Monroe County. We partnered with Keep PA Beautiful and PennDOT and Palmyra to get us supplies, and Waste Management actually gave us some of the yardage to be able to pick up those 738 bags, which was great. These next couple of things are just examples of some of the campaigns. The billboards that you'll see, we did place some in this market because Luzerne is a very strong partner of ours. And we also placed some in Lehigh, Northampton, and the 4 counties of the Pocono Mountains. It just reminds people when they're visiting us that we want to be a litter-free zone. We also did some yard sign programs, which we, believe it or not, they're incredibly effective. These were some of the yard signs that we used on ingress and egress ramps and throughout some of the township municipalities. We also provided some to Luzerne County. We have many more we're happy to provide. We printed 400 in the first round. We printed an additional 400, and they're working really, really well. And again, those are some of the messages that you'll see on those yard signs as you come through both counties. That was a fairly quick presentation. I know you have a lot to do. I was on a school board for 20 years, so I get it. So I just wanted to get to the point and tell you guys what we're doing, and thank you for Ted. He's been a great partner. We're happy to do anything we can. This is a really important subject for us, and I'm happy to answer any questions that any of you may have, Mr. Chairman.
Questions for Mr. Barrett? Mr. Wampel?
Just one final thought. I do want to point out, we've been at this thing since the beginning of the year, and we have some great partners already. All the third-class cities in the county are part of it. Wilkes-Barre's taken the lead, Pittston, Nanticoke, Hazleton, Lehman Township has come forward, Wright Township, Hanover Township. So there's a lot of partners that are in place. You'll see some of these signs. We actually have one strategically placed on Public Square. You'll start seeing them all over. I really believe, and I learned this from the meetings that we've had with the Environmental Council as well as with Pocono, it's education and awareness. And that's where I remember, I joke about when we were young, even when I was in chemistry class. You know, one of the things to remember.
Were you young then? I don't
Get that
remember.
in. But you know, we remember the Native Americans standing on the side of the road and the trash being, and then there's a jingle that goes with that I promise you I will not go into. But you know, it's stuck in our brain because that was some of the education and awareness that we had, and that lacks today. And that's our goal is to get the municipalities involved, take the lead, and also to get the school districts involved. You saw some of the signs. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is we're going to introduce to the school districts a program to design the signs for Luzerne County. And we're going to pick some winners, and we'll give out some gift certificates. And but we want, again, that gets everybody engaged and really part of this program. I do want to thank Pocono Mountain. You know, realistic of where we are as far as resources, personnel, and cost, they've been this great partner. People have asked him, why does it say pick up the Poconos? Because he paid for the signs. You know, and we're all part of this big Pocono region after all. So won't take up any more of your time, Mr. McGinley, and thank council for our time.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
What is the program, or is it gone, the program where high schools or different groups would buy a piece of highway and clean that up? Is
Yeah.
that gone?
No, ma'am. PennDOT does still have that program, Adopt a Highway. Unfortunately, they don't monitor it as they used to in the past, just for resource limitations. So you may see that along the roadway it says Adopt a Highway, this adopted by X corporation or X high school. If you signed an agreement 10 years ago, they have not gone back and checked that. So, however, they will always accept new groups, and that's a really strong way to really enter that. We have a really strong relationship with PennDOT in our district, so we have the listing of those folks, and we kind of remind them when we're doing our meeting, when we're doing our picks, if they could do that at the same time. That's a good point.
Well, it's a great project, and obviously it's something that was identified when that gentleman came in. So we appreciate your efforts, and certainly by doing something, I think you'll help to alleviate that problem.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And one thing, if I may,
Sure.
to close, everybody would always say to us, what are you doing this for? It's such a big problem. And I say to everyone, this is something that everyone can do. Sometimes programs are so overwhelming or problems are so overwhelming. This is something we can all do to help our environment and help how we look as a country. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, all of you, for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Urban?
I'm sorry, sir.
There's certain areas where there's more litter than other areas, high litter areas. I mean, I walked last night from St. Mary's over to McDonald's, and right near the railroad tracks there by the drugstore there's just maybe 30, 40 cans and plastic bottles thrown right on the railroad bed that it belongs to Luzerne
Can't
County.
hear you.
On the railroad bed right next to Luzerne, that belongs to Luzerne County Rail Authority. You go on Casey Avenue off of Blackman Street and swing up, go to Kmart. There's always stuff thrown there, mattresses and big stuff. I mean, is there any money for cameras that you can put in these high litter areas? I think you catch a few people, you'll send a message, and find them and make them go out and pick some of this stuff up.
It's very interesting to say that Keep PA Beautiful is investing in some cameras that they're sharing with municipalities that kind of post in those high litter areas. If you notice, some of our yard signs say that. And that's our next step, is to start to do that within our own counties. But Keep PA Beautiful does have a lot of those types of resources that they can get. And if there's an area where you see that, I would encourage to get in touch with them, the municipalities. I think the key thing for us when we started to do this program was continuous communication with our municipalities and townships. We tried to make it as easy on them as possible, and we tried to do most of the work. But it does take vigilance. I mean, you can clean, unfortunately, that's where awareness comes in. You can clean something up one day and 2 days later, it's exactly the same. It's
Yeah, particularly
unfortunate.
you see them at the exits, people get off the exits, they start to slow down, there might be a yield sign, and then the trash is right there alongside there. That's where the cameras ought to be, catching those license plates.
That's why we put a lot of those signs there. And now there is Act 62, which was just passed recently, that has a lot more teeth in the anti-littering laws. So if I encourage people, if they see somebody tossing, to take down the plate number and report it, and they will go after that person. I mean, the fines are pretty stiff now.
Rather than raising taxes, let's do some revenue enhancement with catching those litter bugs out.
Agree.
And Mr. Urban, if I can, the other reason that we're running this meeting on the 22nd for the municipalities is to educate them on those exact resources that they may just not be aware of. So that's why we encourage it, and we hope the word gets out to get them there, because that's how they'll find out what resources are
Thanks,
available.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we're going to get down to the topic that probably everybody's interested in hearing about, the voting machines. First of all, I'd like to thank the 3 vendors for being here this evening at 5 o'clock and set up so that everybody had an opportunity to go and visit and see the operation. The council has the information from the committee that was assigned the responsibility to come back with a recommendation. We also have a written memo from the manager in that regard. I've asked the 3 vendors to come to the podium and make a short presentation on what they feel was the positive aspects of the machine and why we as a council should consider them. As each one makes their presentation, then we'll have time for questions and answers for each one. And then at the end, if there's any general questions to be asked or answered, we'll do that at that time. So going by alphabet, the Dominion voting machine people, will you please come to the podium, introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is John Hastings. I'm the regional sales manager for Dominion Voting Systems. With me today, I have David Moreno, who came from Denver, Colorado this evening. He's our director of product strategy. At this point in time, at this juncture, I'm going to try my best just to speak positively about our system. Luzerne, first and foremost, council and the committee, thank you for doing your due diligence. I think it can't be overlooked in the thoroughness of the the search, and we surely appreciate the opportunity to be represented as a candidate and a member here today. Like I said, I'm going to try to keep this short, and I don't know if the other vendors, what they had in mind as well, but I certainly just want to touch upon a few things. First and foremost, to start with our service. Certainly, on Election Day, we will be here, and throughout the course of the process, from installation throughout the length of the contract. One thing we will always stand behind is the type of people we employ and we have, and certainly our service is one of those things. Certainly here in the state of Pennsylvania, we have upwards double digits and growing in current customer base, which I think is ideal for Luzerne County. We can concentrate our efforts here with a vast footprint in the state and a presence, as well as the surrounding states such as New Jersey, New York, and Ohio, just to name a few. Currently in 34 states around the nation. So I just wanted to hit upon the type of people we have employed, and we truly are passionate about what we're doing from our service standpoint. Secondly, just a few quick things to touch upon. Like I said, I know this is, don't know how much of what we say here today. Certainly our efforts have hopefully between all the vendors, competitive-wise, have shown throughout this process. But just to touch upon a few things, we are currently operating on Microsoft Windows 10. Which is the latest and greatest operating system for voting systems, which is something that has been touched upon and discussed throughout the process of the state of Pennsylvania and throughout the country. And we certainly are certified federally at the EAC as well as here in the state of Pennsylvania, which our other fellow vendors are as well. A few other things just to touch upon. We utilize most often off-the-shelf components, which is an extremely cost-effective approach, not only near-term but far-term as well. So that is a huge point of emphasis for our group. It keeps your county flexible, yet cost competitive and effective, not only in years 1, but also throughout the length of the contract. Last but not least, oftentimes details get lost in the mix of what you're trying to do as a voting system vendor. I always start with service and I'll end with service, but at the end of the day, does your vote get counted and cast properly? Certainly we through a number of certification efforts and patented technologies that we have. One is called the audit mark, which I've stressed and hit upon a number of times. We take a digital image of every vote cast at the precinct. So you have digital imagery of all the votes cast at the precinct to ensure and enhance your thoroughness and effective cast vote records back here at the county. So again, just a few points I wanted to bring up. Once again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm a citizen of the state of Pennsylvania, live in Pittsburgh, so if you're this side of the state fans of this group, don't hold that against me. I bleed black and gold. So I will end on that, and I'm hopeful that we gain your trust and work with you as a partner in years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be ES&S. Again, if you would state your name, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity to be here today.
Would you
My
state
name
your
is
name?
Joe Passarella. Yeah.
Very good.
My name is Joe Passarella. I'm the regional sales manager for election systems and software. I have been here before to speak in front of you, and I appreciate coming back again. Anytime ES&S is given the opportunity to come and demonstrate our voting equipment to council, to the election board, to the county staff, poll workers, members of the public, we really appreciate it, and I can't thank you enough for allowing us to come back again. We are very proud of our long-term, very successful partnership with Luzerne County. I think we've had very successful elections in the past, and we hope to do that in the future. We have a partnership with William Penn Printing. Grant Matthews was here. He may have stepped out because he had to go do LNA in another county early tomorrow morning. And we're the only company that has a partnership with a company in Pennsylvania with Pennsylvania employees, such as myself, as a matter of fact, that can come here at a moment's notice and look at any machine or help you with any machines. As a matter of fact, next week, we will be here to do your logic and accuracy test. So regardless of which decision you make on new voting machines, I can guarantee you we're going to be there for you in November with our staff that's always here with you and our poll book staff, and to guide you with anything you may need. As far as the voting machines themselves, we weren't really prepared. I don't really want to get into a lot of pros and cons. I will say to you that our voting machine was certified in Pennsylvania to cast 120 to 180 ballots per hour. And that is probably the fastest that you're going to get in a precinct scanner to scan ballots, taking a digital image of each one. And we're very proud of that, and I know that's been a big topic of discussion in Pennsylvania. Our ballot marking device, because I understand Luzerne County might go to ballot marking devices. Our ballot marking device is 16 pounds and includes a printer within the ballot marking device, a thermal printer, no ink cartridges, no toner cartridges, and it includes a battery backup. So you don't need one of those big UPS uninterrupted power supplies to drive a printer. We have everything self-contained in one 16-pound ballot marking device, and we're very proud of that. It's also the only one, I believe, that's certified in Pennsylvania that an ADA voter or a voter with sight can put the ballot back into the ADA machine and have it read back to you exactly how that ballot's going to be counted when it goes over to the scanner. With us, Chris Voloshin. He is from our home office in Omaha, Vice President in charge of security. He'd like to say a few words.
Absolutely.
And give him your full title, Chris. I only say Vice President.
Will do, Joe. Good evening, Chairman McGinley, council members. I'm Chris Voloshin. I'm the Vice President of Security at ES&S. Before joining ES&S, I oversaw security for the Department of Health and Human Services in Washington, D.C., overseeing security for organizations like the Food and Drug Administration, National Institutes of Health, CDC. Thank you for the opportunity to address you and for taking some great questions from some concerned citizens who were out front in the equipment demo today. Three good vendors here, all certified in the state of Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I'd just like to mention a couple of things that might distinguish ES&S in your mind from our competition. First, I also want to say that I'm the chairman of the Elections Industry Sector Coordinating Council. All the vendors represented here and about 23 others come together to talk about how to advance security of the elections infrastructure in the nation. So we partner together. We are fierce competitors, but we do partner together. Let me just say, our partnership with the Department of Homeland Security is very solid. We know the DHS folks in your state. If there's ever any kind of incident in the Commonwealth, we are on a first name basis with those folks. I started my day in State College this morning. The Council of County Commissioners Association had a tabletop exercise in State College this morning. So they asked ES&S to come and be a part of that event, and we're here. We have a long-term relationship with Luzerne County, and we would like to continue that. And I would ask you just to consider a couple things. Past performance. How do we do when we support your elections? Is it good? Is it better? Is it riskier to move to a new vendor? That'll be a decision for you to make. You heard Joe tout some of the equipment performance things that we like to distinguish ourselves with, but I'll tell you that the security is none better. I look forward to your questions about anything that I've said, about anything that you've seen on the machines, or anything else that's on your mind concerning ES&S. And with that, let me pause there and take a breath and see if you have any questions.
Questions for the gentleman? Ms. Huff?
I've been reading a little bit about remote access.
Yes.
And there have been some concerns that your machines come preloaded with remote access.
Thank you for that question, and I'm happy to separate some fact from fiction there. More than a decade ago, 2006 to 2009, when it was an industry best practice, some of our customers wanted remote access in the election management system to help them build and program ballots. As soon as the EAC made that capability not within the voluntary voting systems guidelines, we stopped doing it. And we have not delivered a system in more than a decade that has remote access to it.
Okay. Is there a potential for your systems to be compromised by being used on a network?
I don't think so, and the reason I can say that with confidence is that we recently submitted our end-to-end voting machines, the devices that you see out here that you've evaluated. We gave all that to the Idaho National Lab for 8 weeks of testing. There is no internet-based access to be able to hack these things over the air or through the internet. We have significant compensating controls in place to make sure that in the polling place or in the election office that someone would need extensive time and unfettered access and to go without notice to be able to do any harm. And then that harm would be to render the device inoperable. They're not going to be able to flip votes or change tallies on these devices. They just stop working.
Okay, and I have one final question. There have been some concerns in our county and other counties across the country about some ethical issues with your company.
Yes.
Could you address those?
I would be happy to. ES&S used to operate a advisory council where we would invite election officials from across the country to come to Omaha or other locations, depending on which state or Commonwealth was hosting those meetings, to talk about how to capture the voice of the customer, how to make our systems better, how to grow voter turnout because of ease of use or usability of the devices. Those advisory councils existed for almost a decade, and we stopped doing them because of the criticism that we received that it looked untoward or possibly unethical, even though the members of our advisory council had received approval from their state and local governments to attend. So we understand the criticism. We stopped doing them, and we're looking for other ways to capture the voice of the customer to make sure that the software and hardware that we build meets the needs of the county.
When did you stop doing those?
This year.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Art Intercivic, right?
Chairman, Council, thank you very much for having us. My name is Davi Bosch. I am with Heart Intercivic, and I am the Regional Sales Director for this area. With me today, I have John Mullen, our Chief Sales Officer, and Sean Phillips with me as well, who is our Consultant Specialist. We appreciate the opportunity to come here and address you all today. We understand that there has been a number of reports that have been out by the public newspapers, as well as the committee has made a report, and Mr. Pedri's recommendation as well. We have brought with us today some information for all council members so that we could set the record straight. There were some inaccuracies in that report that we would like and hope that you will take into consideration. Heart Intercivic is...
And that's available to anybody,
It is
right?
available to, we can publish it online. I believe the newspaper has also published it, and we have some copies with us today.
Thank you.
If not enough, we will certainly send them to
Thank you.
whoever's interested. Thank you. Heart Intercivic is based in Austin, Texas. We are the only company that is actually based in the United States and manufactures in the United States. Some of our competitors' offices are based in Canada, and some of our competitors also do their manufacturing overseas. All of our components are put together in Austin, Texas. One of the things that's very important to us is the supply chain of where those components are coming from, and we have a very, very strong chain of custody. We are also members of the EIISAC and these governing groups. We work with the GCC and Homeland Security very, very closely as well. Another thing that I want to mention that there are a number of differences between our systems, but the one thing that I want to mention specifically is security. Obviously, security is a big issue. One of our competitors, and we'll be very specific with ES&S, they have a power switch in their express boat. Their power switch is locked near the media. If they do have a power outage and they do have to reboot that system, they will actually have to go into that locked area and access that power switch. We've made our system so that that locked media stays locked from the beginning of the election until the close of election, until it's actually addressed and ready to move forward. Another key differentiator for us is the fact that our system does not use any barcodes. I'm not saying that the votes are flipped, but my human eyes cannot read barcode. I can only read English, a little Spanish, maybe a little Italian, but I can only read human readable language. Our scanners also only read human readable language. We are the only system in the country that uses this type of technology, and we have a patent pending on this optical character recognition, OCR. Very important for you to know is that our votes are not encrypted in those barcodes, where our competitors do have it encrypted in barcodes. So their scanner, while you will still be able to read the human readable language, the barcode is what the scanner is reading, not the human readable language. And we see that as a big perception issue for voters. It's recently come out in Colorado that they will no longer allow for barcodes, also in the state of Oregon as well. So if legislation does change in a couple of years where the country is saying, no more barcodes, it's not transparent enough, there's going to be issues with you having to go out and purchase a new system. So I'm not sure if I've missed anything, if I have any other questions. I mean, I have a whole number of points, but I think a lot of them are contained in this document, as well as the document from the Secretary of State of Texas, who failed Dominion's current system that they're recommending for you. Any
Questions?
other thoughts, questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ES&S has stated that they are the only system that deals with people with disabilities. So what does your company do for a disabled person?
We have a system that is for voters with disabilities, and ours has the least number of buttons on it. So ours is considered one that is not confusing to the voter. It addresses hearing impairment, visual impairment, and if a voter has issues with mobility, there's an access for sip and puff devices so that they can utilize that. Our device also utilizes the identical ballot that all voters would be using in the polling location, so it doesn't look any different than anyone else's ballot.
Other questions? Gentleman from Dominion? Seems like disability is a question that's been asked of the other two, so would you respond to that, please?
I will.
Would you step up to the, so they come across the microphone there?
Our system as well, Hearts and ES&S, we're all ADA compliant as well, all for accessibility needs. And again, I didn't know how the organization or discussing other vendors. I just wanted to highlight what we do well, and certainly we meet this federal and state certification and ADA, as we just addressed. Our system does do that, of course. And of course, we will have somebody here at a moment's notice, and can be with our office in Jamestown, New York, which has roughly 20 to 30 employees in the state of New York that can be here at a moment's notice as well. Just to, as I'm learning what other folks are saying, just wanted to highlight some of those things as well. We've gotten to know each other, us vendors, pretty well over this time, as I would say. So any other questions I would be happy to address, but of all the main standards, of all the things you must meet in the state of Pennsylvania, we obviously meet those and more. We're gaining traction as far as from a footprint standpoint, counties, Montgomery, York, Pike, Carbon, to name a few, and Eastern PA, just to highlight some of those counties that we have current business with, Erie as well. So thank you.
I have one question that I'd like to ask all three, and you can ask in any whatever order. One of the concerns I had was, as the technology may change over a course of 3, 5, 8 years, whatever it may be, how are the county, with a partnership with one of the vendors, would address those types of changes. And whoever would like to go to the podium first is fine.
Well, I can certainly speak to what we do. As I said, we work with a lot of off-the-shelf equipment. So with that being said, our tablet and the printer that we have not only is cost-effective, but has the flexible nature to move with the times. As the election industry is changing rapidly in different states and the country in general, so whomever might be the president or governor of a certain country or state, you need to be on the cutting edge of modern technology to adjust with the time. And we've certainly designed and developed a system to meet that flexibility and those ever-changing needs, where it's not just a one-size-fits-all, and then if things do change, your whole unit's gone, or opposed to some of those things that are out in the marketplace today. It's certainly designed for certain intent, but our intent is to keep a flexible nature. I believe, Mr. Chairman, as you had said, that something we can do, and that's the reason why we developed specifically, and I could probably say we're one of the few, if not only one, that has the capability to have that sort of flexible nature. Thank you.
Hart's system is built on a common platform. I'm going to ask Sean Phillips to talk a little bit about that with you.
Good evening. Yes, thank you. The Hart Verity platform is what's called a common platform. All of our equipment is built on a modular design. So to speak directly to your question, if things change, whether it is the needs of the county, legislation, any other change that might cause you to change the method of voting here in the county, our system is kind of a plug-and-play modular piece. So if you need to go from an all-paper system to a hybrid system, from a hybrid system back to a fully hand-marked paper system, instead of having to throw out the equipment that you're purchasing now, we can, for a fraction of that price, convert that equipment using the same shell that you will be purchasing today. So it's kind of an insurance policy against any of those changes that may come. Thank you.
ES&S?
ES&S charges you for a license agreement that guarantees that any hardware or software developments that may come down as a result of changes in laws or regulation or EAC, voluntary voting system guidelines, whatever that might be, our field service personnel will come out and make those changes. We have about 3 releases in the software development process going in any one year. We can handle customizations that the county might need. And we spend about $20 million a year in research and development to make sure that the software and services that we provide are the latest and greatest.
Thank you. Mr. Urban?
Yeah,
you have a question?
I wanted to ask all three a question too. You say you're all ADA compliant. I mean, what about a person who's blind? How would they come in and vote on your system?
Sure. So when the visually impaired voter approaches the machine, there is a set of headphones and a tactile keypad that the poll worker can provide the visually impaired voter. Every candidate, every race is recorded on audio that the impaired voter can hear through the headphones. They can walk through the choices that they make for candidates and races, and then at that review screen, it's all read back to them to make sure that they have the machine has correctly captured the voter intent. And once that review is done, then a card is printed out and they can cast their ballot.
Obviously, I'll have David Moreno speak a little bit to that as well.
So, hi, my name is David Moreno. I'm Director of Product Strategy for Dominion. Basically, very similar to ES&S, our system has an audio tactile interface that has Braille on it, and it has a set of headphones. Also, that has a port for a two-way 3.5 millimeter jack that can be used for sip and puff, or paddles or head control. So for paraplegics, they can use the same control that a visually impaired voter. They will go through all the options, select their candidates. The machine will read back the candidates to them to see if they agree with their selections. And when they cast their ballot or they print their ballot, it will print a ballot for them. So it's very similar process. We all have to go through a lot of those processes to be certified at the federal level to be compliant in those areas.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'll reiterate that our system's follow the same process where the voter who is visually impaired would put on a headset. The differentiator between HART, I think, is a couple of things. We have, as Davi mentioned, a user interface that has far fewer buttons. The voter will put on the headphones. They can even actually mask the screen so that they know no one is looking over their shoulder, seeing what is still on the screen while they make their selections. But instead of having numerous buttons, even up to a dozen buttons to navigate through the pages and change the volume, we use a circular design where you're turning a wheel to navigate through. Each click of the wheel will highlight that audio, read that audio to the voter, and allow them to make their selections, and then it reads the selections back. Our system also allows the county to set that up with live human audio voice versus a synthesized computer voice, which really helps for pronunciations and things like that. But on a basic level, despite those differentiators that we think are powerful, all the systems are going to work in that way where the voter will put on the headphones, use some sort of interface to navigate through. Thanks.
Thank you.
Other questions? We have the gentleman and lady there, and this is our opportunity to bring up anything they would like to ask, and if they don't have the information, they told me they would get it to us immediately.
You know what? I have a question.
Go ahead.
And first of all, I just want to say I was impressed with all three presentations by all three companies. So I want to thank you for taking time to be here with us and trying to walk us all through it. I guess my question is going to be, it's going to seem as though I'm putting ES&S on the spot, but since your machines are the ones that we currently use, I felt like I told you guys when I went through your demonstration about me taking my 8-year-old with me when I went to vote. And I kind of feel like a lot of what I saw out there today, from the screen to the touch to the way that I voted to, I guess with all the advances of technology and how things move so quickly and change on a daily basis, like the machines that I voted on in the last election, why does technology not allow for your company or any of these companies to somehow take what we have and have these technology gurus come up with a way to make what we're using that I think worked pretty well for me compliant with the paper trail that we need and probably save the taxpayer and the county a boatload of cash and keep us within this mandate that we have to do. So I don't know if that's like a crazy question for you, but the way that people are able to figure things out technologically, why can't something like that, why can't what I have now that worked pretty well for me somehow produce this compliant paper trail and these with some, I don't know, some bell and whistle you showed out there? Why can't our system be added to upgrade to be compliant?
I don't know if I'm speaking for everyone here, but
We'll have an opportunity.
yeah, but I think you're going to get a similar answer. The United States has gone to a paper trail, as you know. I know a couple companies, including us, developed you cast vote like on your machine now, and then it will just print out a little paper trail for the voter to review, and then go in just keep winding around or cut and drop into a bag or whatever. The voter can review a paper trail, and that was deemed to be not good enough because they want a piece of paper that can go through a scanner and be scanned with the images that you can do post-election audits and everything else with it. So for us it would probably cost more to take that whole machine apart, build a printer and everything inside of it. We're not allowed to actually cast the vote electronically anymore in Pennsylvania and most of the country. I don't know if that answers it or not. Somebody could probably elaborate a little better.
Anyone else would like to have
It kind of really doesn't, because what I was kind of saying, and that's not, I understand what you're saying to me. What I'm trying to ask is why can't somehow technology connect to an existing system that we have and produce a scannable card like you had me demonstrate very, very well, I may add. And, I was able to do it, so that's a good thing. I guess that's the question I'm asking. Why can't what we're currently using be adapted, whether it's through the use of a scanning device or whether it's through the use of a...
I think what they're telling you, Mr. Bilbo, is the machines we have right now, we would have to reconfigure them. And I believe the cost factor from what they're indicating would be greater than going to a new machine. But let them speak. They're the experts.
Yeah, I would say adding on to an existing device, bolting something on or tacking something on to a earlier design to try and adapt it to current needs causes a lot of user interface, usability, and other issues. But I think one of the main things is also equipment just has a lifespan, and we know that that lifespan is going to end. And what Hart wanted to do was we built a system from the ground up. We do have a legacy system that's in use across the country, but we decided to not bolt on to it and start from the ground up, because when you start with that clean sheet of paper, you're able to design something that is more up to date. And really what we bring is the latest security protocols to that as well. So there's been a lot of advancements in security as far as encryption and digital signatures and other things as well that we need to introduce. But yes, the idea of kind of retrofitting in the end would be just as expensive, and then you would see the lifespan of those machines start to deteriorate as well. So yeah, and so that is another differentiator. We are bringing the newest scanner of the three. It was first certified in late 2015 and widely used in 2016 versus some of our competitors that are already a decade or more old for their scanning device.
Dominion?
There's a question.
Yeah. What is the lifespan?
The lifespan of the Verity system is 15 years.
So 30 uses.
Because I think it was Mr. Urban that had brought up once, I mean, except for the fact that we have we must go to a paper vote now. I mean, these voting machines haven't been used all that often.
That's
You know,
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're voting doesn't take place every week or every month.
I see her.
Yes.
So,
Well, I can't speak for the current equipment, but I will say that this system we do say will last 15 years. And the supply chain of this system is fresh and it's young because we decided to build that new system. So the pieces and the parts and the components are not already, a decade old, and we're able to source those. We've got a healthy, robust supply chain to take us into the future. But yeah, the lifespan, they are not used every day. Sometimes just sitting is just as, detrimental to a device as using it every day. So the lifespan we know is going to last you that amount of time. And with the convertibility can also give you extended life. And I'm not talking about tacking something on, but just changing one device to another to meet legislative needs.
The other gentleman, wait a minute, I think the Dominion.
Sure, I just want to address your specific question. The Ivotronics that you're using today, they were designed in 2004, 3 years before the iPhone was invented. And yet they continue to operate reliably. When you take care of them, you keep them secure. That lifespan is built into our modern equipment. All three vendors are going to last you 10 or 15 years, maybe longer. But it's that sustainability, the serviceability, the usability, I think that you'll find distinguishes one vendor from another.
I think.
I just wonder, 15 years, and we're talking about 19 million. I mean, are we really?
You're talking about 3.5 to 4 million.
Right, 3.5 to 4 million, yeah.
And let me just say, your elections aren't happening every day, but we are supporting elections every week across across the country. Our equipment is in use in about 42 states. We're constantly taking lessons learned from elections across the country and building those lessons learned into the go-forward products.
Well, let me just say this in response to my question to you guys. My question was not a buzz moment, oh, I got you. That wasn't what I was looking for. Yeah. But understand that this council, all 11 of these council members, this is a huge undertaking for our county, and we're responsible to all the taxpayers in all parts of this county. So as far as getting the information out there and wanting people to understand, this is why we have to do this. This is why we need a machine that functions this way. I'm asking that question for the person that's not at this meeting, that's going to pick the newspaper up tomorrow, that's going to sit there and say, hey, wait a minute. Those machines I vote on, they work great. Why can't they do something to make... So I asked that question. It was not a gotcha moment for any of the three of you.
Understood.
It was so that the people of this Luzerne County understand this is why it has to be this way. And we're not just deciding, hey, you know what? We need a car, but we're going to get a Cadillac. I want it explained as to why we need to do this. So Just so I'm clear.
And the gentleman said the Commonwealth's requirement is that we have to have a paper trail now. The voter intent has to be captured 100% accurately, and a paper trail that can be audited no matter what. That's how you can assure your voters, the committees that tested our machines, the public who've been interacting with them, that they're making the right choice.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and I think what Sheila was referring to, as I mentioned in the past, that these machines are only used twice a year in Pennsylvania. We don't really have runoffs like, say, Georgia, where if you don't get 50%, you have another election a couple weeks later, or Louisiana, where they have runoffs also. These things are usually used in the primary in May, April or May, depending on presidential year, non-presidential year, and then in November, and that's it. So twice. And my mother asked me that question one day. She said, well, what's wrong with the old ones? I mean, they've only been used 10 years. That's 20 times. So, I mean, how are they not workable?
That's not the question, though. It's not
Yeah, I know.
whether they're workable or not. It's what the requirement is,
Yeah, I
which
know,
means we
I
need a
know.
paper trail.
Thank Jill's time.
I just want to respond to
Yes.
the question asked, but you didn't have a chance to reply, but I will let David speak to it. I just want to just mention and note that, again, the system we want to design, and it is upon the bid and reporting, we are the most cost-effective solution. And the reason why we are is because of those off-the-shelf components that I mentioned. Our tablet is the lightest tablet right now in the market, I think, at least from a bid standpoint. The flexibility, so you were saying, sir, that can we adjust and alter maybe what we have? The idea is our touchscreen can be converted into 3 different modules of voting when and if those changes do come. Pennsylvania, our laws are from the late 1930s, and we're seeing a lot of change. I'll keep saying that throughout the course, and obviously within the contract restrictions, we can meet some of those changes as they occur, but just to your point, as the laws do change, whether no excuse absentee, early voting, vote centers that we're seeing all over the country, we meet those sorts of standards as well as the way we vote here in Pennsylvania. So from a cost-effective approach, I think we hit the nail on the head there. And from a product standpoint, addressing some of the concerns that were mentioned, that's another reason why I'm speaking to it, is that that our system is able to do that from an off-the-shelf perspective. And I'll have David speak to some of the...
Yes, I just want to add one more thing because I concur with my 2 competitors. They were on perfect what they said about why we need new technology. But I'm going to add one more thing. We have a lot of equipment from 15 years ago on the market right now, and we're replacing it with the new. The new standards for encryption, like Hart mentioned, the new standards for encryption and the new standards that are coming on the VVSE 2.0 in the next few years require more processing power. I mean, we cannot do what we do today with the iPhone 11, what we did with the first iPhone. It's similar. Now the federal government is asking for certain rules and requirements to be followed that are more difficult to follow with equipment that was developed 10, 15, 20 years ago. So we're seeing a spike in power and processing power on the equipments right now. What that does is that with the equipments that all the companies were developing in the last 2 or 3 years are going to last more than likely longer than the previous one in terms of processing power, because it's exponential, the difference between what we could process 20 years ago than what we can process today with computers. So that's the other addition I wanted to add to why new equipments are now being developed by all the companies.
Thank you. Any other questions for the gentleman and lady? Again, thank you for taking time and being here this evening. We appreciate it very much. Thank you for bringing your equipment. And if we have any further questions, we'll send it all out to each of you and ask for replies so they can share it with the council members. Thank you. Okay. As I said earlier, the division reports are there in your packet. If you have any questions, Mr. Pedro would be happy to respond to them. I think at this point, we've had a lengthy session and a lot of information, and we need the public to respond, and we have 2 people who've been waiting very patiently to do that, Mr. Ouellette and Ms. Davies.
I actually have a question for the manager, if I could ask.
Sure.
Or I could wait till after the public comment.
That's fine.
Okay.
Well, maybe you should do it before in case public wants to
Okay.
pick up on them.
So I do have a question about the ADA positions that were changed.
Sure.
Because the news report said that the DA said that she had informed the union, which is not the same as getting an agreement. Was there an agreement?
I'm not aware of. I'm not
Okay.
aware what she told her. or she
You're,
didn't tell.
just so you know, Ms.
I did
Halper,
email her.
you sent me the email, I sent her, forwarded it to the email
Okay.
and asked her to reply.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not aware what she discussed with the union or not.
Okay. And then the other thing is, I saw in the paper yesterday, I think it was, there was an advertisement for companies to clean the records facility and the coroner's office. Is that a new thing? Or do our buildings and grounds not do those buildings? That building?
I'm not sure.
Are we outsourcing now? We're subcontracting?
I don't know if we ever.
That building is outsourced because of.
Mr. O'Neill, would you come to the podium, please?
Have we ever had building and grounds clean up, Mr. O'Neill?
No, we did not on a regular basis. We had a couple people go up there on a few occasions at the start, but we were not staffed adequately to supply those services for that building. So it was decided that we would outsource that to an outside firm.
Do you know the cost of that?
I don't have the contract. I believe that's handled within the Judicial Services Division.
Okay.
And is that an agreement with the bargaining units? To outsource that work?
This is the first I'm hearing of it. I'm not aware if there was ever work that needed to be reviewed. I'll review that with Ms. Hogarth.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we'll ask the public, please. Who would like to be first, Ms. Davies or Mr. Olet? Okay, come to the podium, please. Just so everybody recognizes Ms. Davies as a member of our election board and registration, and she also served on the committee, right?
Yes, I did. Yes,
Thank
I
you.
did. And I also want to thank everybody for coming, the three vendors. I've gotten to know them. They're lovely people. Could not have been more of a pleasure really dealing with them. Having said that, having served on the election board for 4 years and the advisory board, I'm still comfortable with the decision that we made. I don't have a problem with it. I also had the pleasure of speaking with a couple of the council members tonight, and I look forward to speaking to any of you that also have questions. We've spent a year and a half doing this. You commented in the paper that tonight was a great place to start, and I look at it as a great place to end, because I've been doing this for a year and a half.
I think your part of it may have ended, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you want. But for us, I think we still have a ways to go.
You do, but that's why we've had several expos and whatnot, and hope you all had a chance to use the equipment. You can see all three of them it's relatively easy, but it's not just the voting, it's the whole thing. It's from start to finish. Mr. Pedri said ease of use for the voter, yes, for the poll worker, our aging poll workers. There's a lot more for you to find out and to ask. And I just want to say, and I'm available to be asked.
Thank you. You want to forward your contact information to the clerk, and she'll be happy to send that out?
I think you might even have it. I know the election board has it all, and I think from when I came on the board, you might have it, but I'll be happy to do that.
If you would, just make sure we have the updated, and if there's any changes or whatever. Mr. Olet?
Thank you. I'd also like to thank all the vendors. They did a tremendous job answering our questions and being very thorough in their presentations. I'd also like to reiterate what Ann said, that we've been at this for quite some time. We had the vendors in here for public demonstrations earlier in the year, and a mass public demonstration in the rotunda. Some of you came. We got feedback from the public on that. We took that into account, and as Ann said, we tried to take into account the entire process from the standpoint of our poll workers, who also gave us feedback on each machine and each one the good points, the bad points of each machine. While each one has its strengths, I don't know exactly how to say this, they're very close. I don't think you can make a wrong decision. We'll have to adapt to whatever we have. My concerns going forward now, as we get these new machines, is that we also put into place on a local level the protocols and security that we need going forward here. Because most of the security issues on these machines are not the machines, but the people involved with the machines, and the storage and that. We were very exhaustive in our examination of this. I don't want you to think that we took any of this very lightly. And as I would agree with Ann, we'll stand by our decision. It was a very difficult decision to make, but that's where we are. And just to comment on Mr. Bilbo's question, when was the last time you bought a new phone?
About 2 years ago.
About 2 years ago. Would you use the phone that you had 13 years ago?
Yeah.
Can you? Steve, Mr. Urban,
Going back to the Rotary.
you actually can use it.
To answer your question, no, I wouldn't.
Yep.
And I make fun of my friends that have flip phones. Or
Well, the reason I asked Mr. Urban that is because the systems for cell phones have changed.
I know.
My wife's cell phone that she really liked, she can't use anymore because transmission technology is different. She had to buy a new phone. We're in a similar situation. Even, setting aside the necessity for paper trails, the equipment's old. The sensitivity of the screens is declining. We see people having trouble with some machines recording or flipping or not accurately having to go back into machines. This is a problem with aging equipment, and we want the voting public to be as comfortable as possible.
I do want to be clear with you again.
Mm-hmm.
When I asked that question was almost more for the benefit of a great majority of people out there.
Sure.
With all due respect to my colleague, Mr. Urban, that may think, well, why can't something be done with it? So I think it's
Right.
important for people to understand the changing in technology and what you need to do
Yes.
to keep up. So your cell phone example was a great one, but I think there's probably a lot of people out there that need to hear the answer to that. This is
Sure.
why, and this is why it's important for the process, and so that things move forward, just as you're saying, in a positive manner.
Yep.
And I don't even know where my phone from 13 years ago is. So.
Right. Just in closing, I'll say we really want to make this transition to new voting equipment as easy as possible for the voters of the county and for the people who have to put these elections together. It's a very complicated process. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know, Miss Davies, you waited a long time. Why don't you come to the podium, though, if you would?
It did remind me when Pete mentioned the iPhone, and one of the things that we've discussed with all the vendors are COTS, the commercial off the shelf. And I personally have a concern about that based on that very thing, that you buy it off the shelf. You get your Dell printer, you get your HP, whatever it is, your Canon, and it's right off the shelf. And you're looking at the lifetime, you're looking at the licensing, and I'm sure there's probably a lot more to it. But those of us that have had phones for a while, not quite as long as you have, Mr. Urban, but you upgrade and upgrade and upgrade until you can't upgrade anymore, and then you're forced to buy a new one. And I have concerns about commercial off the shelf. I tend to, and I did a lot of purchasing when I worked for Luzerne County, and I am very partial to proprietary. I want to be able to call someone and say, come and fix it, replace it, do whatever. Not send, could you run out and pick up a printer for us, because we're kind of, that's my personal, and I thought I needed to bring that up when you were discussing the cell phones.
Thank you.
And I'm sure I have more, and I'm really available.
And we'll make that known.
Make that comment as well, as anyone on the council wants to contact me with further questions about the process.
Again, if you would forward that information to Ms. Lawrence, we'll make sure that goes out to every council member so they have that opportunity. Okay? I think we're past the point unless you have something
I
really.
did. I just wanted to address with the off-the-shelf comment. We certainly can, are, and willing, and we prefer to handle and maintain those updates that she had mentioned. It's just not her preference. However, we do suggest that we would be the vendor and the ones to help repair, just like the other vendors in the mix as well. Even though we're utilizing off-the-shelf equipment, we will be there. We're not just going to send you out and say go take it or leave it. So I know we've been here too long, but I just wanted to address that because that's certainly something we can address, and we look at that as a perk to our system.
Thank you. Mr. Shiner? Mr. Griffith?
One of the concerns that I have after looking at the machines is the compatibility with our electronic poll books. One of the questions that did not come up from any member of
My
council.
understanding is, Mr. Griffith, so you have information up front. I asked that question, are all three machines compatible? And the answer was yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that clarification.
That clarifies that for you.
Yep. Okay, that's good. So, and then the other question, and I appreciate Linda's boldness to even ask the question, as to the issue with the ES&S situation that we ran into in this county. I'm just surprised that nobody else asked it. It's very important in a county that has ethical issues that we ask those questions, those hard questions of vendors when they stand here as to how that happened and what are they doing to fix it. I'm a little bit relieved that ES&S stood here and said they fixed it by not doing it anymore. However, I don't think it was appropriate for them to do it in the first place. But at least they've addressed it, and I appreciate the question, and I certainly appreciate their answer. I think it was very forthcoming, and council can feel a little bit more comfortable with at least entertaining their bid. The other question that I have is nobody asked how much is the machine. That's important. I mean, if we're going to buy something, I think it'd be important to know what their cost of each machine is. And I don't want to know their negotiated price. What is their list price? When we go buy a car, we look at the sticker on the window. We see $34,000, we see $38,000, and we move to the next vehicle. We need to know what the list price of those machines are so we have some comparison as citizens. What are we looking at? Are we looking at a vendor that's 30% higher than somebody else? It might make a big difference to us as citizens. I mean, Mr. Bilbo asked a question about, how come we can't make them compatible with another printer? Because the citizens want to know. I think the citizens really want to know what they cost. They don't care about all this other stuff. They're the ones paying for it. They want to know what they cost. And the ability for us to redact that information is just as ludicrous as redacting the contracts for the unions to the public. We're paying the bill. We have a right to see what it's costing us. We don't have to guess that until after it's approved. We should know that up front. That should be the first thing we should know as citizens. But unfortunately, we have an Office of Law that says the public doesn't have a right to know that information. We do. It's important. I mean, when you negotiate a contract with a union and you sit in an executive session and you've come to a bottom line agreement and you're going to come out here and vote on it, I think it's pretty obvious what the price is going to be at that point. So why not disclose it to the public? It's not a negotiated number. You already know what the number of the machine is. You know how many you're buying. You know how much they cost. Why is it such a big secret what it's costing us? I just don't understand that. Maybe the people ought to say that when it comes time to pay their taxes. I'm not going to pay my taxes because I don't really know what they're going to do with the money. But that doesn't happen either. So I think that's very, very important that we know how much this stuff costs. And for the ability for you to hide that from the people is not transparent at all.
I can answer this question and offer one more bit of advice to you, if I may, regarding numbers that would affect the bottom line.
No. If you have other advice, that's fine, but don't get involved with the numbers.
Well, the voting machine numbers. When we put out the RFP for voting machines, we asked the individual companies to tell us, based on how many precincts and registered voters we had, how many pieces of equipment we would need. And ES&S said we would need 600 ballot marking devices. Hart said 650, and Dominion said 720. So there's a difference, and their prices were based on that. When the advisory committee was meeting, we created a fake number, if you will, a false number, to try to compare the companies. We created the figure of 700 voting machines, 200 tabulators. Give us your best final offer. And they did. And if the decision was made by Mr. Pedry to recommend to council, was it based on the 726, 5,600, or was it based on the last final offer, which is 700, which is less than Dominion suggested and more than Hart and ES&S? So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Anyone else?
Yes, one item before we, as a member here, I just want to state, I wasn't aware of what happened at the DA's office, and I wasn't aware of what happened with the cleaning of that building. And especially the cleaning of the building. I mean, we have 9 or 10 people that do an outstanding job here. I've said this before, cleaning all these buildings. Maybe we have to look at hiring more people through the rank and file before we start subbing stuff out with this cleaning stuff. Because the 10 people we have, I wouldn't trade them for anybody. They do a tremendous job here.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
In addressing this, Ms. Houck used the word outsource. That is the incorrect word. Luzerne County has never outsourced this type of work or anything along those lines. No individual has ever lost a job. Regarding this, we've had somebody cleaning this facility. If council would support addition of building and grounds employees down there to be down there, we'd be happy to have them. Believe me, I love the county employees that have her, and we're lucky to have these guys. So if council wants to add more people to the building and grounds crew to clean up down there, I am all for it.
I'll make that motion.
Well, when we get to the budget process,
Yeah.
that will be part of the process because that is a budget item.
Is there going to be an opportunity for the DA to discuss what she did? I mean, I too, and that's probably because Linda and I both have negotiated a lot of contracts. And I knew she was going to have concerns over the taking of a union position and making it non-union. Will the DA have some time to respond to that?
Well, we certainly, the VA will be here during the budget process to make her presentation, and that will be an opportunity to discuss personnel issues related to that office. Because obviously it's a budget issue. Anyone else?
Is this Mr. Petry's time now?
Excuse me?
You're still going to give your brief?
No.
Just one question. A couple of weeks ago at a meeting, might have been a month ago, Mr. Sweats mentioned something. Do we actually have a credit rating or not?
We do.
Was it been downgraded?
It has not.
So it's still the same?
BBB minus investment grade.
Okay.
We had a conference call with Standard & Poor's where we sat down with them at the opportunity to potentially move that up
Okay.
From where we're at, but I haven't heard back from them.
Okay.
But we are still a BBB minus.
All right, that's, I thought he said we had lost our credit rating because the audit didn't come in.
No, that was.
I don't think that was stated, but Mr.
Okay.
Pedro answered your question.
Okay.
Anyone else? Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Bilbo, Mr. Snee, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.